What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and I got another top 10s video for you, and you guys have been requesting this one for weeks, so I'm here to deliver, and I'm here to also share with you my top 10 favorite stories in video game history. Now, instead of doing this for individual games, I actually decided to do this on franchises, because, I mean, you know, individual games do have their good stories, but it's when you really build it around a franchise that it becomes great and a masterpiece. And to start off with a weak, in my opinion, the weakest of my 10, but it's still a really great story and overall, is Killzone. The Killzone world in a whole is quite interesting, and out of any first-person shooter franchise, it's really the one that stands out to me even more so than Resistance did. The reason being is it has some relatively familiarities to our own history. Most noticeably, as I'm sure some of you guys can know, it's based off Nazi Germany during, I would say, the World War II era. I mean, when you have leaders like Skala Verzari, how the Helghast really view humans, how they want to capture Vecta, what they think of the ISA, really how they intended to win the war, and really their need to prove that they were the dominant race and that Helghast are going to conquer the galaxy, it's their destiny. You can clearly see these very ideas from our own human history, and the fact that they were incorporated into a sci-fi world with a first-person shooter aspect, I think really makes it a story worth telling. And even the stories, I would say the most interesting character next to Skala Versari is Rico, which is kind of like, if you know who I'm talking about, then you know why Riku stands out. And even he, as a character, has a lot of personality, and there's more to him than he simply hates Helghast. He does have his reasons, and that's really why Killzone really is such a great game, and why I'm proud to add it to this list. Number 9 on my list is Infamous. Infamous is another great exclusive, which at this point in time has 2 games. Going into the next game, it looks like we'll be starting with a new hero. Whether it's going to have any connections to this game, we're not sure. But I think the overall storytelling, especially with the ending of the first game, was just absolutely mind-blowing. I would even say that's probably the best twist I've seen in a video game series ever. The fact that your older self comes back through time, does something to you, which then changes events that goes to another direction, and you see where that goes, is a really great story. And for me, I think the ending of 2 really felt like an X-Men kind of ending. It's like, do you wipe out all the humans, or do you wipe out all the power people? And I really cannot wait to see what they do in Infamous Second Son. I really hope it does continue the storyline, but if they want to try to reboot the franchise, I'm perfectly open to that idea as well. Number 8 on my list is Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts, at the time, in the beginning, was really like one of the best partnerships you could imagine. I have Square Enix, which was unquestionably my all-time favorite RPG company at the time, combining with Disney. So I get to see Final Fantasy characters and Disney characters in one game. How could you possibly go wrong? And hell, I even get to fight with a big-ass key and just kill things and kill little shadow beasts to have lots and lots of fun. I mean, there's nothing cooler than hitting someone with a very large key and fighting alongside some of my favorite Disney characters I grew up watching. However, in a whole, I think as time has gone on and there's really been more side stories than actual games in the main sequence, it's kind of gone down for me. But hopefully, when Kingdom Hearts 3 is hopefully going to be announced, maybe in the next year, and we get a final conclusion to this franchise, I'm sure, and it better live up to the hype, because it's been too long since we've had a legitimate Kingdom Hearts game. I have nothing against the side stories, but they really aren't all that interesting or add much to the story. But again, when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes, gives us our conclusion, and I really have my doubts that they could screw it up after so much time, and that's why it's on this list. Number 7 on my list is Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI is unquestionably, and not just me, many people have considered it to be the best Super Nintendo game that ever came out for that console, even more so than Super Mario World. In terms of story, you cannot go wrong. If you really wanted to play just one game on like an Super Nintendo emulator, get Final Fantasy VI. You will not regret it. There are more characters in that game than any other Final Fantasy game. The story has so many great elements, and which, have you go into different world, and there's consequences, and there's a good amount of time where you get to know each of the individual characters and what really drives them, what are their motivations, how are we going to stand up to this unstoppable force, and really shows you that even though you're a different person, you can work with other people who are different and can achieve great things, and I think that's true even in our world today. Number 6 on my list is Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Now, just sticking to the first game, because I think number 2 was a bit disappointing. That storyline for that particular game, I think, is the perfect mix of adding prequel elements to elements in the original films. And I honestly think they should make a live-action version of that story. The story of Starkiller, or if you know his real name, he's like Galen Merrick, is basically probably the most powerful character in the Star Wars universe. I cannot think of anyone who would be even more powerful than him. And we actually get to see not as much Vader as we want it to, but we do get to see just how manipulative he can be. And it really just begs the question as for a couple of continuity issues I have with the original series. But that's just me. It's still a great story, and I absolutely suggest you try it out if you're a fan of Star Wars. Number 5 on my list is the Batman Arkham games. Batman, as you know, is my favorite superhero of all time. His stories are unmatched on any level between DC or Marvel storylines. And I think the Arkham games really do capture the element of what it's like to be the Dark Knight. And as you get into Arkham City, you will then start to go deeper into his character when he's kind of thrust into a much more desperate situation. And it's not quite as closed as it was in Arkham Asylum, although I do believe that it's overall, Arkham Asylum was a much better game than Arkham City. Hopefully, with the direction they want to go with Arkham Origins, hopefully they keep that spirit in the game, but maybe make Batman a bit more vulnerable because he's a much younger version, so he's not quite as disciplined as he was in the original games. But I personally don't think they could do wrong with Batman. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen such a crappy and just representation of Batman. But that's for another video. Number 4 on my list is Dead Space. Now, to keep it simple and short, Dead Space in a whole did what Resident Evil's 4 to 6, and then trying to throw elements of the original games, have been trying to do, but have failed every single time, and that is to create a creepy-ass environment where you are constantly on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to happen. Necromorphs are 10 times scarier than any zombie can be. And the fact that they've had a whole world around the Necromorphs and Unitology and Isaac Clarke. Isaac Clarke is not your standard hero. He was really a character who was completely unprepared for this situation, but ended up over time being the expert of being able to understand how the markers work, how the Necromorphs work, and better how to combat them better than anyone else. And I really hope they make another Dead Space and give us a Dead Space 4, and I really cannot wait to see what the next animated film they're going to do and what more they will add to this world of Dead Space. Number 3 on my list is Mass Effect. Mass Effect is, I would say, even in my opinion, the best strictly RPG science fiction type game that we have to date. It's going to be a real long time before we have another game of its kind. I think that having the ability to throw an RPG element in a third-person shooter game and being able to play with all these really unique species and characters and go on these great missions and explorations and this threat of the Reapers is unpar on any level whatsoever. Although some of us did have that crazy reaction with the ending, EA and BioWare did fix the ending, so they do listen to their fans, and so just on a strictly fan to developer relationship, they do listen to us if we yell loud enough, and they may not give us the ending we want, but they do give us an ending that works. Number 2 on my list was so difficult because I honestly cannot decide which one is better, and it is a dead tie between Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy VII. Reason being is that in a whole, I think that Final Fantasy X is the superior game, but it was really Final Fantasy VII that made me the gamer I am today. Most gamers really do focus on most of the gameplay. I have always put story ahead of any type of gameplay. If you can give me a great story, then it is well worth my time to play, and it really all started with Final Fantasy VII. That storyline, playing 7 years old, has lasted these past 15 years, and I have yet to play a game where I've been so almost emotionally attached to each of these characters. And it really did show why Final Fantasies 1 through 10 can really capture what makes RPGs great. Now, when you get into later games, things drastically change, but that's a video for another time. And finally, as I'm sure many of you guys can already guess what my number 1 is going to be, it is Metal Gear Solid. I've been talking about Metal Gear Solid all throughout my channel. You know how great it is. You know how story-driven it is. You know how great of the characters they have. You know the emotional ties. You know the tragedies and the successes and the thrill ride and the overall emotional experiences and the technological advances and how it's able to connect with our own history and incorporate them into the game. That's something no other game can do. And the fact that it really is so cinematic, no other franchise can get away with it. Metal Gear has been doing it since the very beginning, and any game that tries to replicate that, people are instantly going to say, you're trying to do a Metal Gear Solid tactic, and it doesn't work, and it hurts the game. Most games, focus on your gameplay. Don't focus on your story and your cinematics. Leave that to Metal Gear. Metal Gear does it best. It will always do it best, and that's why it's my number 1. And with that, that is my top 10 favorite stories in franchises of all time. So tell me, what do you guys think of my list? And tell me, what are some of your guys' favorite stories in video games? Because I'd really like to know. So tell me in the comments down below. And if you like this video, please like, comment down below, and please subscribe to track for me my future top 10 videos, movie, and video game reviews. And like always, thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.